Hey guys, welcome to the channel Dit Commando. My name's Ryan, and today we're going to be reacting to Could the United States Defend from an Invasion of the Homeland? Before we get into it, guys, a little bit about myself. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando from Britain, if you haven't already guessed by my channel. I react to military-based content, okay? So do me a favour before we get into it. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, guys. I'd really appreciate that, okay? And if you want to become a member, members below, thank you guys for joining the channel. It needs updating, so that list has grown a little bit as well. Thank you guys, I really do appreciate the support, and all of my other channels are in the description, guys, along with Discord, Twitch, Twitter, all the usual, guys. But we're going to get straight into this one. Enough of my introductions. I'm going to try and shorten these introductions down, guys, okay? But yeah, could the United States defend from an invasion of the homeland? Very interesting one, this. We've been doing quite a few videos on the United States of recent, and I'm going to say yes as a short. I think they could defend an invasion of the homeland, but we'll see what infographics has to say about it. Boom. Let's go, guys.
It's the early 1980s, and over the sky of the American heartland, Soviet and Cuban paratroopers begin to fall from the sky. In minutes, thousands of communist invaders have gained a foothold in the very heart of America. With World War III in full swing, it's up to a
Would they be parachuting in like that, though? Just like that? You know, they've got to getting past an awful lot of military technology to get to that point, guys. So, a little bit unrealistic.
And of plucky teenagers to fight a guerrilla war against the godless commies. If you grew up in the 80s or just plain don't have bad taste in movies, then you're well aware of the action hit Red Dawn, a film that portrays a Soviet invasion of the United States toward the end of the Cold War. No, we're not talking about the remake. We don't speak of the remake. But film aside, could it really happen? That question was asked by infographic show fan Blazik, who wanted to know if someone were to invade America, could the US pull all its forces home and hold out against a foreign invader?
Of course they could. The biggest, powerfulest military on the planet, so it goes without saying. You know, we could. This doesn't even need to be a 12-minute video. It could be like a 30 seconds video. Could they defend an invasion of the homeland? Yes. End of video, guys.
Despite what fiction like Red Dawn would have you believe, the United States was never in any danger of an invasion by the Soviet Union, mostly because the Russian people were about as interested in invading the US as Americans were in invading the Soviet Union. Of course, that didn't stop politicians and military officials on both sides using the fear of an evil capitalist or communist invasion from ballooning defense budgets. The saddest fact of the Cold War just might be that despite all the preparations to defend from an invasion by both sides, neither NATO nor the Soviet bloc ever had a single war plan drawn up for an actual preemptive invasion of the other's territory. But another major reason why the US was never under any threat of an invasion is due to its unique place in the world geography. In order for an enemy to get to America, first it must cross two massive oceans, and this geographic fact makes the United States the single most secure nation on Earth. Even today, moving troops and equipment across the oceans is a massive undertaking in terms of both logistics and cost.
Yeah, and we've seen that with the Falklands War for Great Britain. You know, logistically, other side of the world, we had to literally get on a couple of ships. Some of them weren't as good as they should have been, and sail across the Merry Seas, guys, okay, to do that. And it was quite a feat just to get there, okay, and never mind fighting the battle. So yeah, I agree with that. America is, you know, geographically situated in a fantastic place. Like, you'd be stupid to even think about it, really.
And very few nations are even capable of attempting the feat. But let's say that the two leading peer competitors to the US decided to join forces and team up against the United States. With all troops returned home from overseas, could the US defend itself against a double-sided assault against it by China and Russia? First, the two-power alliance would have to decide on where to strike. For an invasion to be successful, both nations would have to land troops as quickly as possible, and that would require the use of a working seaport. These ports would require good rail and road infrastructure, and must have deep-water anchorages so that large cargo ships could dock and disgorge troops and heavy equipment. The need to take and hold major seaports is critical, as aside from a few token fire support platforms, amphibious landings alone wouldn't be able to deliver firepower fast enough to secure a beachhead. In Normandy during World War II, the success of the landings was largely down to a brilliant deception played out by the Allies, which saw the Nazis concentrate their forces at the wrong landing site. And even when the real landings happened 100 miles away, Nazi commanders were so fooled by Allied intelligence that they ordered their forces to hold their positions, believing that the real assault was coming their way any day. The ruse, combined with some whopping tactical blunders by Hitler, allowed the Allies to quickly build a makeshift port facility which let Allied armor and artillery disembark. Had Hitler allowed his commanders to commit panzer reinforcements to the landings, Normandy would have likely ended as a complete catastrophe for the Allies. By the time he cleared reserve panzer units for the assault on the beachheads, Allied logistical units had already disembarked enough tanks to repel the assault. In an invasion of the U.S. homeland, such a ruse would be impossible to pull off. Long-range and satellite surveillance assets would see an invasion fleet days before it made land.
Which is exactly what I was saying before. You know, the technology that they've got, they would see it a mile off, guys. All right, miles and miles and miles and days off. They'd never even get close. Simple as that.
And its target would be clearly known to the American defenders. Therefore, China and Russia would have to act quickly and decisively, taking major seaports and holding them long enough to disembark a sizable expeditionary force able to repel American counterassaults. For China, the only good options for unloading main battle tanks and mechanized artillery would be the ports in LA, Long Beach, Oakland, Tacoma, and Seattle. The LA Long Beach complex would be especially attractive as it's one of the world's largest ports and would allow Chinese forces to disembark very quickly. Unfortunately, these port facilities are also very close to several American air and naval bases, making them easily defended. The Seattle and Tacoma ports, however, are far more vulnerable, as only 5 major American bases are near these facilities. Landing in Washington, though, would mean Chinese forces...
Well, 5 major bases is still a massive threat, isn't it, really? You know, defense-wise, you don't even if you've got 1 major base, like 5 bases... That's the only thing I like infographics, but, you know, sometimes the information's a little bit stupid. What do you think, guys? Let me know in the chat.
Would have to fight south and into California through easily defended and very mountainous terrain, a tactical nightmare for any Chinese commander. Russian invaders would face an even less enviable job. The American East Coast is home to far more numerous large port facilities, giving the Russian invasion force a greater number of targets to pick from. Unfortunately, the American East Coast is also the most heavily defended, with several dozen major military installations spread out from north to south. The East Coast is also home to America's largest military shipyards, which would be so heavily protected it would be suicidal to attempt a landing or assault against them. Russia's best bet would be to attempt a landing in Mobile, Alabama or Houston, Texas. This, however, would mean Russian force more time out at sea and move into the Gulf of Mexico, where they would be surrounded on all sides but the south by major American air bases.
Yeah, you don't want to go there.
For both our challengers, the tactical picture is not looking very good, as the United States simply has no...
I was just thinking there as well, Texas, it's not... You just said it would be pretty easy to go there as well. I don't think that... I don't agree with that. Like, you got the Texans to deal with, and no one wants to deal with the Texans. They're real hard asses down there, you know, and armed up to the yin-yangs as well. So, you know, it's going to be a fight with the civilians, never mind the military guys. What do you think?
No viable landing sites for a major expeditionary force that couldn't be easily defended. China and Russia could opt to coerce or bribe Mexico or Canada into allowing them to land at their facilities and launch an invasion into the U.S. itself. This would be by far the best strategic option for the invasion forces, but in response to the agreement between either nation and the Sino-Russian alliance, the United States would immediately begin a large-scale bombing campaign against port facilities in Canada or Mexico, with every viable port being within easy reach of American bombers. Even before the invasion force crossed the ocean, they would be sailing for ports that have been turned into rubble. Assuming that the U.S. didn't use naval aviation, which it definitely would, the invaders could opt for using ports in South America, well out of reach of most American bombers, and then simply move north to invade through Mexico. Moving through South America's poor rail and road infrastructure, though, would be a nightmare for the invaders, allowing plenty of time for the U.S. to simply move blocking forces through Mexico to...
I'll tell you what, though, I do love the graphics on this, the way they illustrate it. It is quite funny, guys.
Panama, and then hold off the invasion there. If, miraculously, though the alliance did manage to land forces in Canada or Mexico, it would face a different tactical nightmare altogether. In Canada, the lack of suitable border crossings would force the invaders to spread out over a large area, or bottleneck and be subjected to endless attacks by American air power. In Mexico,
Yeah, that wouldn't really be feasible, would it? You know, going from Canada all the way down, it wouldn't happen, guys. All right, it just wouldn't happen. Canada is absolutely huge, and the weather and everything they've got to take into consideration, it just wouldn't be viable that at all. I don't think anyway. What do you think? I don't think it would be viable whatsoever.
military border crossings would be possible over a far larger area, but enemy forces would be moving through terrain that provided absolutely no cover. American air power would once more devastate any invaders trying to move through the flat terrain of the US-Mexico border. Geography alone provides the United States with near invulnerability from enemy invasion, but the logistics of the world's militaries proves why the US simply cannot be invaded. An invasion of the American homeland would rely on naval power to get the job done. And right off the bat, no nation on Earth, nor any combination of nations, has the firepower and logistical support needed to carry out such an invasion.
Yeah, and I agree with that from some of the videos that I've reacted on and the comments that I've received, and I've managed to learn something. I would agree with that. You know, there's no one as big to be able to compete with the Americans. It's as simple as that. You just couldn't do it, guys. They're too big.
Matter is one of historical necessity for the world. Ever since the end of the Second World War, all of the world's major powers have had no need to project military power far from their own shores, except for the United States. The Soviet Union was chiefly concerned with securing its European borders, and in the case of a Third World War, its most vital strategic objectives could all be reached over land. The vitally important oil fields of the Middle East could all be taken via land routes through Afghanistan and Iran, and no navy was needed to hold off NATO forces in Europe. The same was true for Europe's NATO members. While once their mighty navies ruled the waves all over the world, their concerns in the 20th century quickly became resisting a possible Soviet invasion, and for that, no major naval power was needed. In the Atlantic, the Soviets hoped to slow the American response with the use of submarines, but ultimately knew that they could never seriously tried. On the other side of the world, China struggles to turn itself into a first world power, and other than resentment towards Japan over its actions in World War II, China has had no real motivations to build a strong navy, at least until now. Much like the Soviet Union and Europe's NATO partners, though, China definitely had no real reason to build a heavy sea lift capability in order to move thousands of troops and heavy equipment across the ocean. On the other hand, the United States is both blessed and cursed by geography. While it's untouchable to invasion thanks to the Atlantic and the Pacific, it also means that in order to project power on the world stage, America has...
Well, it's not untouchable, it's just not feasible for any military to do that at all. You know, in the current state of affairs with the military as well, around the world, no one can compete with them militarily anywhere. You know, budget-wise, the ability to kind of reinforce whatever they're doing, they just haven't got it, guys, you know. So it would be, not just geographically, it would be militarily as well. They haven't got the capabilities of doing that, okay? So it is possible to be able to do it, but people can't.
Always needed a strong navy. This is the reason that the U.S. has always had a very strong naval tradition, and why it has invested in naval and air transport more than any other nation on Earth. If U.S. troops want to get somewhere, after all, they're certainly not walking there. To even get forces into the U.S., any invading army is going to need some serious sea lift capability, and no force on Earth comes even close to the U.S.'s 125-vessel Military Sea Lift Command, which operates a vast fleet of oilers, tankers, and heavy cargo transports. Yet, even this fleet is not enough according to some analysts, and plans are being called for that include dramatically increasing the capability of the U.S.'s military transport fleets. China has in recent years expanded its landing ship capabilities, with several dozen available to carry troops and heavy equipment. These ships, though, are not meant for global operations and are only designed for cross-strait invasions into Taiwan or to ferry supplies to China's illegal holdings in the artificial islands it built across the South China Sea. A crippling
Okay, I never knew that. That's pretty interesting. You learn something new every day.
lack of support vessels such as oilers means that China cannot physically get its landing ships across the Pacific, though even if this problem were to be solved, the nation cannot hope to make a contested landing on foreign soil. Again, this is because of China's lack of need for a global expeditionary military force. China's chief military concerns lie with a military invasion and forced repatriation of Taiwan, and thus it has not invested money into developing a true blue water navy. Russia has even less naval transport capability and support vessels, which again is a result of its military objectives being close to home. To compound the two-nation sea lift problem,
Yeah, so I never thought about that actually. Your own arms race depends on your own capabilities, and it also depends on what your kind of objective is as well. So, for instance, Great Britain no longer has a thriving Royal Navy like it used to way back when. It's actually really small in comparison to most militaries out there. Especially what we were. You'd think we'd still invest massively in the navy, but we don't. But it's because we just haven't had the need to. All right, the empire is no longer what it used to be. It's far from it, in fact, and there's no need. So what's the point of maintaining something massive? But when you look at the world map and where America's interests lies and its current objectives, it's globally dominant. So in order to get around the globe with a military as big as it is, it needs to have a massive navy. It's as simple as that.
both nations have no dedicated amphibious assault ships capable of providing close air support and air superiority to landing forces on a contested beach. By comparison, the U.S. operates 9 of these specialized vehicles, and they will soon be equipped with the F-35 stealth fighter. Projecting air power is in fact the biggest weakness for any nation hoping to invade the U.S., and China and Russia combined only operate 2 active-duty aircraft carriers of extremely limited capabilities. Russia's infamous admiral.
So that can't compete at all. You're looking at a couple of bombing raids or something to be able to take them out, and they're out of action anyway. Then they haven't got a fleet really. So yeah, I wouldn't even send them out to compete with the Yanks at all.
Admiral Kuznetsov very publicly had to be towed back to a friendly port after experiencing severe mechanical problems. Without adequate air power, neither nation could expect to secure a foothold on the U.S. mainland. America's air forces are twice as large as both nations combined, and its naval aviation alone.
I didn't realize it was twice as large as both nations combined. That is frightening, actually.
Is as large as Russia's total air power. If by some miracle either nation could get troops across the ocean to U.S. shores, the lack of air power would reduce the attempted landings to a suicide mission. In the end, not only could the U.S. protect from an invasion of the homeland, but it is currently and for the foreseeable future completely invulnerable to military invasion. Luckily, the U.S., China, and Russia have no desire to fight each other, and there exists no real reason to. Now that you've made it to the end of the video, why not keep...
Right, so that one's that, guys. A really interesting one, that. Could the United States defend from an invasion of the homeland? I guess most people, all right, could have answered that already. The answer was yes, all right? It's always going to be yes. Come on. We're talking about the United States here. I wonder if there's a UK one, because that's interesting, because we're an island, and our military's changed an awful lot over the past few years, or few decades, should I say. So I'm going to have a look, actually, after this, and if there is one, I'm going to react to that, guys. But if you did like it, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you return to these videos all the time, you might as well subscribe, guys, all right? And help me out a little bit. If you want to become a member, then press the join button, guys, okay? But thanks for watching. If you did make it this far, if you want to speak to me, drop a comment below. I'll quite happily return all of the comments as well, guys. But other than that, I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take it easy. Bye-bye.